The desperate proposal. The morning light filtered through the canopy as Olivia Reed adjusted her camera lens, focusing on a red fox den she'd been documenting for weeks. At 32, she had built a respectable career as a wildlife photographer, her work appearing in nature magazines around the country. The small cabin she called home sat on the edge of Pinecrest, a town where everyone knew your business before you did. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking her concentration. The screen displayed a name she hadn't seen in years. Ethan Blackwood. Ethan? She answered, voice tinged with surprise. It's been what? 5 years? Liv, thank God you answered, came the hurried response. I'm in town. Can we meet? It's important. 2 hours later, Olivia sat across from Ethan at Rosie's diner, studying the changes in him. His once wild brown hair was now neatly styled, and his casual clothes had been replaced by an expensive suit that seemed at odds with their surroundings. But his hazel eyes still crinkled at the corners when he smiled, the same boy who'd climbed trees with her and shared secrets under starlight. So you're some big-shot financial advisor now, she said, stirring her coffee. What brings you back to Pinecrest? Last I heard you were conquering Wall Street. Ethan loosened his tie, looking uncomfortable. That's complicated. My grandfather passed away 6 months ago. Oh, Ethan, I'm sorry. Thanks. He took a deep breath. His will came with conditions. I inherit everything, the family company, assets, but only if I'm married by my 35th birthday, which is in 3 months. Olivia nearly choked on her coffee. Married? That's archaic. Tell me about it. My grandfather was old-fashioned, believed a man wasn't responsible until he had a family. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, messing up its perfect style. My parents are parading potential brides in front of me like it's the 1800s. So find someone you actually want to marry, Olivia suggested, trying to ignore the strange pang in her chest. In 3 months? He shook his head. Besides, these women only see the Blackwood name and fortune, and I'm not ready for marriage. Not really. Then what's your plan? Ethan leaned forward, lowering his voice. That's why I'm here, Liv. I need your help. I need a fiancé. The implication hung in the air between them. You can't be serious, she said, eyes widening. Just for a year, maybe less. We announce the engagement, satisfy the will's conditions, and then quietly break things off later. I'll make it worth your while. Enough money to fund those wildlife conservation projects you're always posting about. Olivia stared at him, speechless. You want me to lie to your entire family? To everyone in this town who's known us since we were kids? We have history, it's believable. And you're the only person I trust not to turn this into a reality show. Drama. His eyes held a desperate plea. Please, Liv. I wouldn't ask if I had any other option. She looked down at her camera bag, thinking of the equipment upgrades she needed, the conservation initiative that had rejected her grant application last month. With Ethan's money, she could make a real difference. Just pretend, she clarified. Nothing real. Absolutely, all business. He nodded eagerly. We'll draw up an agreement with terms, timeline, everything. Olivia took a long sip of her coffee, remembering the boy who'd been her closest friend, who'd defended her against bullies, who'd encouraged her photography when everyone else called it a hobby. She owed him this much, didn't she? 1 year, she finally said, and not a day longer. Ethan's relief was palpable. Thank you. You're saving my life. And Ethan? She fixed him with a stern look. No funny business. We're friends helping each other out, that's all. Of course, he agreed quickly. Just friends. Neither could have predicted how difficult those words would become in the months ahead, or how a fake diamond ring would lead to feelings more genuine than either had expected. Playing the part, Olivia smoothed down the emerald silk dress that cost more than her monthly rent, a purchase Ethan had insisted on for tonight's event, the annual Blackwood Foundation Gala. She'd protested, but he'd been adamant that his fiancé needed to look the part. The engagement ring on her finger caught the light, its weight still foreign after 3 weeks. Stop fidgeting, Ethan whispered. his hand warm on the small of her back as they navigated the ballroom filled with New England's elite. You look beautiful. I feel like an imposter, she murmured back, forcing a smile as another couple approached. Ethan, darling. A sleek woman in her 60s embraced him, her diamond earrings catching the chandelier light. And this must be the mysterious fiancé we've heard so much about. Aunt Josephine, Uncle Richard, this is Olivia Reed, Ethan said, his arm sliding around Olivia's waist with practiced ease. My childhood sweetheart who stole my heart all over again. The rehearsed line sounded so sincere that Olivia almost believed it herself. A photographer? Uncle Richard repeated later, swirling his champagne after Ethan explained her profession. How quaint. I always imagined Ethan with someone from our circles, perhaps in finance or law. Olivia's work has been featured in National Geographic, Ethan countered, a protective edge in his voice that surprised her. Her latest series on endangered species awareness raised over $100,000 for conservation. Warmth bloomed in Olivia's chest at his defense. She hadn't told him about that achievement. He must have looked up her work. As the evening progressed, Olivia found herself fielding endless questions about their relationship. When did they reconnect? How did he propose? Were they thinking summer or winter wedding? Each lie built upon the last until their fictional romance had taken on a life of its own. Dance with me, Ethan suggested as the orchestra began a waltz. It'll give us a break from the interrogation. On the dance floor, his hand firm against her back, Olivia felt a dangerous comfort in their proximity. Ethan had always been handsome, but there was something about the man he'd become, confident yet vulnerable, ambitious yet kind, that made her heart beat faster than it should for a fake fiancé. You're good at this, she commented as he led her through the steps. Dancing with strange women at charity events a regular occurrence? Only the ones I'm engaged to, he teased, then grew serious. Thank you for tonight, I know it's a lot. It's fine, though your mother cornered me about grandchildren. Plural. Ethan winced. Sorry, they've been waiting a long time for this. For you to settle down with someone completely wrong for you? Something flickered in his eyes. Are you? Wrong for me. Before she could formulate a response, the music ended, and they were swept into another round of introductions. Later that night, in the guest suite of the Blackwood family estate where they were staying for the weekend, Olivia kicked off her heels with a groan. Your family is exhausting, she said, collapsing onto the sofa. Your cousin Beatrice asked if we've set a date 3 different times. Ethan loosened his tie and sat beside her. They're suspicious. We need to be more convincing. More convincing? I practically wrote vows on the spot when your grandmother asked about the ceremony. He hesitated. We need a backstory. Something real we can draw from so we're not constantly improvising. Olivia considered this. Like what? Like why we fell in love. His voice softened. What do you remember most about me from when we were young? The question caught her off guard. I remember you climbing through my window the night my parents told me they were divorcing. You brought chocolate and stayed until I fell asleep. Ethan's expression changed as if surprised she'd kept that memory. I remember you were the only one who came to my debate competition senior year. Not even my parents showed up. You were brilliant, she said quietly. I knew you would be. Something shifted between them. Something unplanned and unscripted. What happened to us, Liv? He asked. We were inseparable, and then life, college, different paths. She shrugged, avoiding his gaze. You left for Yale. I went to study photography. You never looked back. That's not true, he said, his voice low. I looked back all the time. The confession hung in the air, too genuine for their charade. Olivia stood abruptly, needing distance. I should get some sleep. Your mother's arranged brunch tomorrow, and apparently half the town is coming to meet. Your bride-to-be. Ethan nodded, the moment broken. Right, of course. As Olivia closed the bedroom door behind her, she leaned against it, heart racing. This was supposed to be simple, a business arrangement between old friends, nothing more. But as she removed the engagement ring and placed it on the nightstand, she couldn't ignore the hollow feeling its absence left. It was just for show, she reminded herself. The ring, the engagement, the way her pulse quickened when he looked at her. All of it was make-believe, wasn't it? In the living room, Ethan stared at the closed door, wondering when exactly he'd started wishing their arrangement was something more than pretend. Walls coming down, the first hints of autumn painted Pinecrest in amber and gold as Olivia's Jeep bumped along the Forest Service road. Beside her, Ethan gripped the dashboard, looking entirely out of place in his designer jeans and cashmere sweater. "Remind me again why I agreed to this," he asked as they jolted over another rut. "Because," Olivia replied, grinning at his discomfort, "my boss at Wildlife Quarterly wants photos of the new wolf pups, and you said, and I quote, 'I'll go anywhere with you to make this look authentic.'" 2 months into their engagement charade, they'd fallen into a rhythm of shared appearances, weekend brunches with his family, charity events where she'd become surprisingly adept at small talk with Boston's elite. Even a feature in the local newspaper about Pinecrest's own power couple. What Olivia hadn't anticipated was how much time they'd spend alone together, planning their strategy, debriefing after events, and increasingly, just enjoying each other's company. "Here we are," she announced, parking in a small clearing. "We'll hike about a mile to the blind I set up last week." Ethan shouldered her spare camera bag without complaint and followed her down the narrow trail. The forest was quiet, save for birdsong and the crunch of leaves beneath their boots. "You really love this, don't you?" he observed, watching her scan the undergrowth with practiced eyes. "Being outdoors? Away from people and pretense?" She glanced back at him. "What's not to love?" "I meant your work, the way you light up talking about it. I never see that at the society events." Olivia slowed her pace to walk beside him. "Those are your world, not mine. I'm just visiting." "And what is your world exactly?" he asked softly. She gestured around them. "This. Capturing moments most people never see. Showing beauty in places others overlook." She paused. "What about you? Do you actually enjoy financial management? Or was it just expected of you?" Ethan was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. "I'm good at it," he finally said. "Making money grow, securing futures. But enjoy?" He shook his head. "I always wanted to design buildings, architecture. I didn't know that. No one does. My father called it an impractical dream." His smile didn't reach his eyes. The Blackwood air doesn't draw blueprints. They reached the photography blind, a camouflaged shelter overlooking a small clearing. Inside they sat shoulder to shoulder, waiting in comfortable silence as Olivia adjusted her camera settings. "What would you design?" she whispered. "If you could?" Ethan's expression softened in a way she'd rarely seen. "Sustainable homes. Buildings that work with nature instead of against it. Spaces that feel alive." "You could still do that," she suggested. "You're about to inherit a fortune." "Maybe." His gaze lingered on her profile. "What about you? Is wildlife photography your forever plan?" "I've been saving for a conservation foundation," she admitted. "To protect habitats, educate communities. The money from our arrangement would make that possible years sooner." Their eyes met, and Olivia felt a flutter of something deeper than friendship or attraction. Recognition, perhaps, of kindred dreams. A rustle in the underbrush broke the moment. Olivia raised her camera as a wolf emerged with 3 gangly pups trailing behind her. "Don't move," she breathed, snapping photos in rapid succession. For nearly an hour they watched the wolf family, Ethan's quiet presence beside her a comfort rather than a distraction. When the wolves finally departed, she lowered her camera and found him watching her instead of the wildlife. "What?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious. "Nothing," he replied, looking away. "Just, I've never seen that expression on your face before." The drive back was quieter, a new awareness between them. As they neared town, Ethan's phone rang with his father's ringtone. Hello? His expression shifted from relaxed to concerned. When? Yes, I'm on my way. What's wrong? Olivia asked as he ended the call. My father, heart attack. His voice was tight. They've taken him to Boston Memorial. Without hesitation, she turned the Jeep around. I'll drive you. The hospital waiting room was a blur of tense faces and hushed conversations. Ethan's mother, Vivian, paced while his sister, Charlotte, sat stone-faced in the corner. Olivia felt like an intruder in their family crisis, but when she suggested leaving, Ethan gripped her hand. Stay. Please. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. Charlotte eventually nodded off on a waiting room couch, while Vivian spoke in hurried whispers with arriving relatives. Olivia remained at Ethan's side, their fingers intertwined as if they'd always belonged that way. I keep thinking about the last thing I said to him, Ethan confessed around 3 a.m., his voice barely audible. It was an argument about the company's environmental impact report. He called me idealistic. You are idealistic, Olivia said gently. It's one of your best qualities. He looked at her then, vulnerability raw in his expression. I never told him about us. The truth, I mean. The weight of their deception hung heavy between them. Ethan, she began, unsure what to say. The surgeon's appearance interrupted her. They all stood as he approached, his face carefully neutral. Mr. Blackwood is stable, he announced. The bypass was successful, but his recovery will be extensive. The relief in the room was palpable. Vivian collapsed into a chair, tears finally breaking through her composure. Charlotte awoke, disoriented but smiling through her exhaustion. It was dawn when they were finally allowed to see Harrison Blackwood, pale but alive in his hospital bed. Olivia waited outside while the family entered, feeling the boundaries of their arrangement stretching thin. When Ethan emerged later, his eyes were red-rimmed but calmer. He wants to meet you, he said. My father's asking for his future daughter-in-law. Olivia hesitated. Ethan, I don't think... I know. He took her hands. But after tonight, after almost losing him, I can't tell him the truth. Not now. She studied his face, seeing not the confident businessman but the boy she'd once known. The one who'd hidden his tears when his father missed his graduation, who'd always tried so hard to be what everyone expected. Okay, she agreed softly. For now. As they walked toward the hospital room, Ethan's arm around her waist felt less like part of their act and more like exactly where she belonged. The realization terrified her more than any lie they'd told, because somewhere between fake smiles and real confidences, pretending to love Ethan Blackwood had become the easiest role she'd ever played. The inevitable. Truth November arrived with biting winds and the first dusting of snow across Pinecrest. 4 months into their engagement, Olivia and Ethan had settled into a routine that blurred the lines between performance and reality. Weekend. Dinners at his family's estate. Quiet evenings in her cabin reviewing her photographs while he worked on investment portfolios. Small touches and inside jokes that no longer required an audience. Tonight, they were hosting Thanksgiving at Olivia's cabin, her idea, to give Harrison a break from the formal Blackwood traditions as he recovered. Her tiny dining table had been supplemented with borrowed folding tables arranged in her living room, now crowded with Blackwoods and a few of her own friends who'd been let in on their secret. More wine, Dad? Ethan asked, refilling Harrison's glass. The older man looked frail but determined, his brush with mortality having softened his usual stern demeanor. The cranberry sauce is divine, Olivia, Vivian commented, surprising everyone with her warmth. Since Harrison's heart attack, she'd been making unexpected efforts to connect with her future daughter-in-law. It was my grandmother's recipe, Olivia replied, catching Ethan's smile across the table. They'd practiced this detail, a small truth, within their larger fiction. Later, as Harrison regaled them with stories from Ethan's childhood, Olivia slipped into the kitchen for a moment of quiet. She was arranging dessert plates when Charlotte joined her. Need help? Ethan's sister asked. Reaching for the coffee mugs, thanks. Olivia had grown fond of Charlotte, who possessed all the Blackwood ambition but none of the pretension. "You know," Charlotte said casually. "When Ethan first announced your engagement, I was skeptical. It seemed too sudden." Olivia's hands stilled on the pie server. "Oh? He'd never mentioned reconnecting with you. Then suddenly you're wearing grandmother's ring." Charlotte studied her with intelligent eyes. "But seeing you together now, I get it." "What do you mean?" "The way he looks at you when you're not watching. How you finish each other's sentences." Charlotte smiled. "I've never seen my brother so himself." Before Olivia could respond, her phone chimed with a text. She glanced down to see a message from James Porter, editor of Wildlife Quarterly. "Congrats on the engagement spread in Boston society. When did you trade wildlife for wedding bells? Call me about the Tanzania assignment. Still yours if you want it." Attached was a photo from the society pages, Ethan and Olivia at the conservation gala last week, his arm around her waist, her head tilted toward him in laughter. They looked every inch the besotted couple. "Everything okay?" Charlotte asked, noticing her expression. "Fine," Olivia replied, silencing her phone. "Just work. The Tanzania assignment, 6 months documenting endangered species, starting in January. Her dream job. One she couldn't possibly take while maintaining their charade." When the guests finally departed hours later, Ethan helped clear the last dishes, bumping her hip playfully with his as they stood at the sink. "That went well," he said, drying a serving platter. "I think my father actually smiled 3 times. "Your mother asked about wedding venues," Olivia replied, keeping her tone light. "Apparently the Blackwood summer home on Martha's Vineyard would be perfect for a June ceremony." Ethan's hand stilled. "I'll talk to her. Remind her we're not rushing." "This isn't real, Ethan." The words came out sharper than intended. "There isn't going to be a June ceremony." He set down the dish towel, turning to face her. "I know that." "Do you? Because lately it feels like we're both forgetting." She stepped back, needing distance. "I got offered an assignment today, Tanzania. 6 months." 6 months? His expression faltered. "When would you leave?" "January. That's only 5 weeks away." He ran a hand through his hair. "What about our agreement?" "That's my point. This was supposed to be temporary. You've secured your inheritance. Your father's recovering. You don't need me as your fiancé anymore." Ethan's jaw tightened. "So you're just done? Ready to walk away?" "Isn't that what we planned?" She crossed her arms. "Unless you're suggesting we actually get married to maintain the lie." "And if I were?" The question hung between them, electric with possibility. Olivia stared at him, heart hammering. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking." He stepped closer. "These past months with you have been based on deception," she cut in. "Your family loves a person who doesn't exist, the perfect Olivia who fits into their world." "That's not true. They love you, the real you, just like I don't." She held up a hand. "Don't say something you'll regret." A knock at the door interrupted them. Olivia opened it to find Harrison's nurse, Patrice, looking apologetic. "Mr. Blackwood forgot his medication," she explained. "He said it might be in the bathroom?" "I'll check," Ethan offered, disappearing down the hallway. Patrice smiled warmly at Olivia. "Such a lovely dinner. The family is so excited about the wedding. Mrs. Blackwood was telling me you're considering the vineyard property." "We haven't decided anything," Olivia replied uncomfortably. "Well, Mr. Blackwood is certainly eager to see his son settled before—" She stopped abruptly. "Before what?" Patrice looked pained. "I shouldn't say, it's not my place." Ethan returned with the pill case. "Found it." After Patrice left, Olivia turned to him. "What isn't she saying about your father?" Ethan's expression closed off. "It's nothing." "Don't lie to me. Not now." He sank onto her sofa, suddenly looking exhausted. The bypass was successful, but there were complications. His heart is weaker than they initially thought. How serious? Without another surgery, they're giving him a year, maybe less. Ethan's voice cracked. He's refusing the procedure, says he's made peace with it. Olivia sat beside him, understanding washing over her. That's why you haven't ended our engagement. You don't want him to know the truth before. I can't hurt him like that, Liv. Ethan's eyes met hers, pleading. Is that so terrible? No, she said softly. But where does it end? We keep pretending until he's gone? Then what? I don't know. He took her hand, his thumb tracing her knuckles. But I do know that not everything between us has been pretend. At least not for me. The vulnerability in his voice made her chest ache. Ethan. His phone rang, Charlotte calling. As he answered, Olivia moved to the window, watching snow begin to fall in the glow of the porch light. Tanzania or Boston, freedom or fabrication. Her dreams or this unexpected connection that had grown between them. I have to go, Ethan said after ending the call. Dad's feeling unwell. At the door, he paused. Will you think about what I said? About us? There is no us, she replied gently. There never was. Pain flashed across his face before he nodded, accepting her words. I'll call you tomorrow, but he didn't. Days passed with silence between them, as Olivia alternated between reaching for her phone and reminding herself this was for the best. The engagement had served its purpose. It was time to return to reality. Her reality, not the Blackwood fantasy. A week later, she accepted the Tanzania assignment, ignoring the hollow feeling in her chest. That evening, she removed the engagement ring for the last time, placing it in a small box with a note explaining her decision. Tomorrow, she would drive to the Blackwood estate and end their charade once and for all. No more pretending. No more wondering what might have been if the circumstances had been different. If only she could convince her heart that what she felt for Ethan had been as fabricated as their engagement. When pretend hearts find real love, the Tanzanian sun beat down on Olivia as she crouched in the tall grass, camera trained on a cheetah and her cubs. 3 months into her assignment, the majestic landscapes and incredible wildlife had provided everything she'd professionally hoped for. Her photos were being praised by conservationists worldwide, and Wildlife Quarterly had already extended her contract for another 6 months. Yet as she watched the mother cheetah nuzzle her young and die, all too familiar emptiness expanded in her chest. She'd fled halfway across the world, but couldn't escape the memory of Ethan's face when she'd returned his grandmother's ring. I understand, he'd said that day, his voice carefully controlled as they stood in his family's library. You never signed up for this complication. Your father, I'll handle it, tell him the truth. But the resignation in his eyes had told a different story, one where he'd lost more than just a convenient fiancé. Now, thousands of miles away, Olivia lowered her camera and checked her satellite phone. 3 missed calls from her friend, Danielle, back in Pinecrest. With a sigh, she packed up her equipment and hiked back to the research camp. That evening, seated outside her tent, she finally returned the call. Where have you been? Danielle demanded. I've been trying to reach you for days. Working. What's going on? It's Harrison Blackwood. He passed away last week. The news hit Olivia like a physical blow. What? But I thought it was sudden. Another heart attack. Danielle paused. The funeral was yesterday. Guilt and regret washed over her. How's Ethan? That's the other thing, Danielle said carefully. There are rumors he's selling everything, the company, the family properties. Charlotte's beside herself. Selling? Olivia sat up straighter. Why would he do that? No one knows. He's barely speaking to anyone, but he filed the paperwork the day after the funeral. After ending the call, Olivia stared at the star-filled African sky, remembering Ethan's quiet confession months ago. I always wanted to design buildings. Was he finally pursuing that dream? Or running away, as she had? 2 weeks later, Olivia stood in the international arrivals terminal at Boston Logan Airport, jet-lagged and uncertain. Taking bereavement leave had been impulsive. Her editor had been bewildered by her insistence on attending the memorial service for a man whose funeral she'd already missed, but she couldn't stay away. Not when every wildlife photograph she captured reminded her of Ethan's appreciative smile in the blind that autumn day. The Blackwood estate looked the same, yet different as her rental car crunched up the gravel drive. Gardens meticulously maintained, windows gleaming in the spring sunshine, but the place felt emptier somehow. Charlotte answered the door, surprise replacing her initial frown. "Olivia, what are you doing here?" "I just heard about Harrison. I'm so sorry I couldn't be here for the funeral." Charlotte's expression softened. "You came all the way from Africa?" "I had to pay my respects and check on everyone. On Ethan." Charlotte studied her for a long moment before stepping aside. "He's in the garden studio. Though I should warn you, he's not the same person you left behind." The garden studio had once been Harrison's retreat, a glass-walled structure overlooking the koi pond. As Olivia approached, she could see Ethan hunched over a drafting table, sleeves rolled up, hair longer than the corporate cut he'd maintained during their engagement. She knocked softly on the open door. He looked up, pencil stilling on paper, expression shifting from concentration to disbelief. "Liv? I heard about your father," she said. "I'm so sorry, Ethan." He stood slowly, as if afraid she might disappear. Gone was the polished businessman. Ethan looked rumpled, creatively disheveled, and somehow more himself than she'd ever seen him. "You're in Tanzania," he said, still processing her presence. I came back when I heard. For the funeral? You're 2 weeks late." "For you," she admitted. "I came back for you." Something flickered in his eyes, hope, quickly guarded. "Why?" Instead of answering, she moved closer to see what he'd been working on. Architectural drawings covered the table, innovative designs with flowing lines and natural elements. "You're doing it," she said. "Your dream." "Dad knew," Ethan replied, quietly. "Before he died, he told me he'd always known architecture was my passion. Said he'd been wrong to push me into finance." A sad smile touched his lips. "His last gift was permission to be myself. The company? Your inheritance? I'm selling majority control, keeping enough shares to fund an architectural firm focused on sustainable design." He shrugged. "Turns out, I don't need to be married to access my inheritance. Dad changed the will after his first heart attack." The revelation struck Olivia silent. Their entire charade had been rendered unnecessary months ago, yet Ethan had never told her. "Why didn't you say anything?" she finally asked. "At first, because I still wanted my family to believe we were engaged. For my father's sake." He looked directly at her. "Then because I didn't want it to end." Her heart stuttered. "Ethan, I fell in love with you, Liv. Somewhere between fake smiles and real conversations." He ran a hand through his hair. "But you made it clear what we had wasn't real. You left." "I was scared," she confessed. "Not of your world or your family, but of how easily I forgot we were pretending. How natural it felt to be with you." Hope rekindled in his expression. "And now?" "Now I'm standing in front of a man who's brave enough to pursue his real dreams, wondering if I was wrong about what was fake and what was real between us." Ethan moved closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his hazel eyes. "I never pretended with you, Olivia. Not about the important things." "Neither did I," she whispered. "That's what terrified me." His hand reached for hers, hesitant. "Your work in Tanzania is amazing. Everything I professionally dreamed of." She interlaced their fingers. "But I've taken thousands of photographs and somehow they all lead back to you." "What are you saying?" "That maybe we can find a way to build both our dreams together." She gestured to his designs. "A wildlife photographer and an eco-architect? We could make quite the team." Ethan's smile, slow, genuine, hopeful, was everything she'd missed in the African wilderness. "No more pretending?" "No more pretending," she agreed. When he kissed her, there was no audience to convince, no charade to maintain, just the truth they'd been circling for months. His arms around her felt like coming home to a place she hadn't realized she'd been searching for. 6 months. Later, Olivia stood on the observation deck of the newly inaugurated Blackwood Wildlife Conservation Center. Below, families explored the interactive exhibits showcasing her photography alongside Ethan's sustainable design elements. The center was the first project of their joint venture, her conservation vision brought to life through his architectural innovation. "What do you think Harrison would say?" she asked as Ethan joined her, sliding an arm around her waist. "He'd probably say it's about time I found someone who makes me better." He pressed a kiss to her temple. Someone real. The simple gold band. On her finger caught the sunlight. No diamonds, no family heirlooms, just a symbol of the genuine commitment they'd finally embraced. "You know," she mused, "when you first proposed our fake engagement, I never imagined we'd end up here." "Really?" Ethan grinned. "Because the moment you agreed to that ridiculous plan, I think part of me already knew." "Knew what?" "That some things are too true to stay pretend forever." As they looked out over the conservation center, their shared dream made tangible, Olivia realized the most valuable photograph she'd ever captured wasn't of rare wildlife or breathtaking landscapes. It was the snapshot of this moment, preserved not on film, but in her heart. Two people who had started with a counterfeit connection and discovered that sometimes the most authentic love begins with pretending.